following show is a paid program.
For coming to see the Cam Hill Show. I'm telling you, I'm so excited today with our guest, co-pastor Mia Wright for the Fountain of Praise. She says, never say it's impossible. These were words that co-pastor Mia Wright learned to live by watching her mother struggle to raise 3 children as a single parent. Hello, lady. How are you?
Hi, Cameron. God bless you. You've had a busy week, and it's certainly
Oh,
to be here with you today.
thank God for you. I'm so happy you're here. I have something to tell you that you have never probably heard me ever say. There's a testimony I have that you and Pastor Remus did for me. November 2011, I had gone to emergency room. I had lost about 20 pounds in about a 2-week period. And I was thinking, the family doctor kept saying, it's the flu, it's the flu, it's the flu. And I could barely raise my head. I was rushed to emergency. And during that period of time, they had indicated to me that both of my kidneys had shut down. In doing so, once they said that, I said, you guys got to be crazy. You know, I still don't feel like it. I know that I'm just feeling bad. I was taking a high blood pressure medicine at that time. It was called Bencor, and that shut down both of my kidneys. In doing so, called State Representative Ron Reynolds. I said, can you get in touch with Pastor Mia and Remus Wright? He said, yes, I can. Got in touch with you guys. You all were at the wedding of Pat and Greta Williams, and you said, but we will be there. They sent a representative first, which was a deacon, very good friend of mine. He prayed with me. But before that night was over, they came and prayed with me. You all prayed such a fervent prayer over my body, over my life, over my whole world. 4 days later, my kidneys functioned. Because during that period of time, they wanted to put me on dialysis every single minute. And everything in my spirit through God said, no, wait, be patient. They're not going to rush you out. But during their prayer, they said the same thing. Be patient. God is going to heal your body, and thank God for you too. I appreciate it so much because on today, my kidneys are functioning. I'm not on dialysis at all, but that's just my testimony. And you have so many more than you all have done over the years. Why be in ministry? Why did you all two dedicate your lives in ministry all these years?
So, Cameron, I first want to really celebrate and honor your faithfulness
Yes.
and your prayer,
Yeah.
the belief that you have, because prayer can be mere words for somebody, but if
Yeah.
you have faith to go along with it, that's
Yeah.
why it says faith without works is dead. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have something to go along with those words. And I just really am grateful to God to hear the testimony that
Yeah.
even 9 years later, here
Yes.
you are strong and healthy and continue to
Mm-hmm.
progress in your life. Um, Ministry is something that I did not choose, just to be honest. It's something that God chose for me. Many people have heard my story that I married a man who was called into ministry. He was a gospel singer at that time. He was an evangelist. I had never heard him preach. I had heard him sing. I had heard him minister. But when I got married, I had not heard him preach. I did not know that he was going to be a pastor. I said God could not have given me the full 10-year plan because I was looking at the 10-day plan
Right.
apparently. when after we got married and a year later, he says he went to preach for what was South Post Oak Baptist
Right.
Church at the invitation of someone that we had just met in the bookstore, and they asked him for a resume. I looked at him and I said, "You don't want to be a pastor, do you?" And he said, "If this is what God wants, then that's what I'm going to be." And I'm like, me and God really have to have this long conversation. And so you can imagine the transformation and the paradigm shift that had to happen for me, not just becoming a pastor's wife, but eventually when God called me into serving ministry full
Right.
time as a vocation, I had to give up I gave up a very lucrative job. I gave up a six-figure job 20 years ago. So you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine how great I was doing in my professional career there. But I had to shift in order
Yeah.
to do what God called me to do. And it is not that we do it for ourselves, but we do it unto God. And we
Right.
watch God continue to bless the ministry and bring
Mm-hmm.
people through our um our time and our ministry, our church, like
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
people where, when God calls you to do something and
Yes.
you submit and you do it, then he gives you the opportunity to do it. So you have to be faithful with God in by
Mm-hmm.
showing up to do what he's called you to do.
What I love about the two of you all is that you're not just ministers in the pulpit. Your ministry goes all over the community. You have touched so many, just giving and just giving back. And by you all just saying, I'm sending someone, but we will be there. And they were there. They did come. Instead of saying,
That's
what, we're really tired, Cam is okay, we'll pray for him over the phone. You know what I mean? Because it could
oh,
have
there
been,
ministry is not a 8 to 5,
mm-hmm,
5 day a week
right,
type of job,
yes,
right? It's a job that you are on call all the time and you
right,
never know when you need to go, right? But
right,
you always have to be ready and able to make that adjustment. There are times that we cannot go, but we are
right,
so grateful that we have strong representation
right,
who can go and
mm-hmm,
represent. They're not just representing the Fountain of Praise, not just representing Pastors Remus and Mia Wright. They're representing God in their
right,
faithfulness to it as well, because they're called to serve as well. And so, being able to activate and offer that opportunity to others to serve as well is part of
yes,
what God has called us to do. Because leadership is not just about us. It's
yes,
not just about me and Remus, because, with a 20,000 member congregation, there is
right,
absolutely no way we'd be able to handle the workload all by ourselves. But just
right,
like God spoke to Moses, in the Bible, for those who are familiar with the story, Moses was trying to do everything by himself. God said, "No, get you some men who have
right,
a spirit like you,
mm-hmm,
and go get those people to serve." And so that is part of empowerment and helping others to fulfill their gifts and their calling as well by giving them the opportunity to serve. And so it's upon us as leaders to be able to train them so that they go in and they know how to handle themselves, they know how to manage, they know how to pray, for
mm-hmm,
us to be able to also have a discerning spirit so that we know
mm-hmm.
the right people that can go in and handle this level of ministry. So we're glad that they were able to show up, but we're also even glad that we were able to show up for you as well in your time of need, Cameron.
Absolutely. You say never say it's impossible. I love that when you say that because your mom was a single parent.
You know what? There's so many people who have a story like mine,
Yes.
where they grew up in a single parent household. And,
Mm-hmm.
the thing about being in a single parent household is that you're not getting the dual income, or you're not,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a single income, then you get the dual time. So there are
Mm-hmm.
things that you lack. And in our case, my mother was a single parent, 3 children. She was not getting child support from our father, and
Mm-hmm.
so in that case, my mother worked to make every end meet. Literally,
Mm-hmm.
we had a home, we had a car, we had everything that you would have never known. I said people don't know how poor we were,
Right.
and I don't think I knew. I had no clue until I completed my what is today known as the FAFSA, right?
Right.
So my college application, the financial aid part, I look back on it. My mother back in 1983 made $17,000 that year. $17,000 in
In a complete
1983. We were
year.
below the poverty line for a
Yes.
whole year.
Year.
And listen, Cameron, that was working 3 jobs.
Yes.
My mother worked three jobs. And when I say never say it's impossible, I know that the word of God tells me this, that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So I know that all things are possible. And with him, everything is possible. So I can do anything but fail. I saw my mom work those three jobs, and guess what she did while she was working three jobs? And this is an 8 to 5. This is a retail job after
Right.
that, and this is cleaning up medical buildings at the end of closing
Right.
in a retail job. So my mom worked those hours. She put in that time. My mother also went to college, so she completed her degree while she was working three jobs, while she was parenting three kids, while she was not getting any extra income from a father or anyone else. The thing is this, is that she was pushing out belief in herself. She was pushing into her children that you can believe and you can do if you just give it a try. Just do it. I don't
Right.
know how she did that. Most of us would faint at having two jobs and trying
Right.
to go to school. Some of us faint just trying to go to
Just having
school,
the
period.
one. We
Okay.
just
Just
ain't
trying to
just
go to
have
school.
one.
Well, some of them just had three kids. Oh my
Exactly.
God! But my mama, listen, she was a woman that can't do was not part of her vocabulary. That's just
Yes.
bottom line. Can't do is not part of her vocabulary. And if people that have met my mother is now
Yes.
deceased,
Yes.
but listen, people that met my mom, all people say such positive things about her. I mean, people still will say things to me. They're like, your mother came up to me and grabbed my hand during an altar prayer, and she said to me how God was looking at me. God was
Mm.
watching me. She gave me something and just kind of pushed something in me that I was about to quit, but yet your mother came right that time and gave me word of
Mm-hmm.
encouragement. And that's what her gift was. She was an encourager, and
Mm-hmm.
she just let people know that you can do it. And she believed in people. So I love her. I love the memory she left
Yes.
us, Cameron. The legacy that she
Yes.
left for us just lets us know that we can do all things.
Well, I tell you, she left a legacy inside of you, lady, because metamorphosis for women, my God, is global. It's a global conference for women. Let's talk about how metamorphosis started.
Oh, see, now you get me all excited. See, this is such a wonderful thing in my life, right?
Yeah.
Metamorphosis started. We were when I first got called into ministry. There were not a lot of women in. Well, there was not a lot of. Let me make sure I state this right. This was more than 20 years ago,
Right.
and there were not a lot of women in preaching positions in the
Right.
city, and those that were, they just weren't in our communities. And so we
Right.
started hosting, like, we called it Marvelous Monday. And so
Right.
every third Monday of the month we would have a totally feminine service. So
Mm-hmm.
we had women that were preaching, women that were praying, women that were leading, women that were interceding, women that were singing. And so it was all women, just kind of like Women's Day, but it was all
Mm-hmm.
women. And it was
Yeah.
so amazing because there were so many young women who needed to see this. I
Yes.
know when I grew up, Cameron, I never saw any women in ministry.
Right.
I had Sunday school teachers. There were women who read the announcements at church,
Mm-hmm.
and there were women who sang, but there were no women who preached. We didn't
Right.
believe in that.
Right.
And there were no women who, like, prayed publicly except
Mm-hmm.
maybe on Women's Day. So to have this on a regular basis was pretty amazing for me because it helped me to break the traditional mold that I had grown up in. And it
Mm-hmm.
also helped me to see myself in those positions. And so as we started hosting these regularly, there were women asking for more and more. And then one of the things that I started noticing when I was going out to speak, I get invited back to another conference. I'm like, y'all want me to come again? First of all, surprise. Y'all want me to come and talk? So I was all excited about that.
Yeah.
And then, like, you want me to come back and talk again?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like excited. But I started asking women the question. So what have you done differently?
Yeah.
What you do differently since the last time I was here? And it was so crazy because women would say stuff to me like, I really didn't do anything different. I
Mm.
still doing the same thing. And so what I was feeling like was that, here we are teaching and telling people, you got to be different. You have to try something new. You got to, give God another try in a different area of your life. And then women weren't, they were hearing it, they were clapping, they were praising God during that, but
Mm-hmm.
then they would go back home and do the same thing routinely. So I started really praying and saying, God, how can I really impact a woman's life? How can I really affect this change? How can I make sure that the words we're speaking now push out something into their lives so that it's not just a spiritual aspect, but it's got to be a practical aspect, right? So it's got to be two things working together so that when I leave church and I go back to my job, that I really have this faith and belief that I can do something, that I can, I can apply for this job, or I have the capacity to do it. These women have got to believe something bigger than just what happened this past weekend when we have a women's conference.
Right.
So God gave me this desire to host a women's conference. So we had the first one in February 2000 in Galveston. And I had planned for 150 women, and I'm like, okay, we got 150 women got to come, and it was 300 women that came, and we were like, don't tell the hotel staff we need any more chairs, because they're not going to let us get any more chairs in this room. We have exceeded what the capacity. I'm like, the fire marshal's going to come and break this up. This is what's going to happen. And it was so amazing to see these women come from everywhere, because they weren't just Fountain of Praise members.
Right.
Cameron, there were women from everywhere because they said, I need this. Yeah. And so we talked about spiritual health. We talked about our physical health. We talked about our mental health. We talked about taking care of ourselves. Things that a lot of people are talking about now, and how we fully integrate all these things into our lives. But at one time, the church was just talking about spiritual stuff. Right. And people were missing how to do the regular stuff outside of church. Right. So I like to see that Metamorphosis got started and birthed out of a desire to really help people, and especially women, get control of their lives and to take authority over those things that they felt they had no ability to change, but yet to teach them through God's power how they can make changes that would really change their whole life and impact their whole community and their family and their future. And it was all through that word, metamorphosis, which is the Greek word for change. Yes. And it really is transformation. How do we change our mind? How do we change our spirit? How do we move forward so that we are no longer the same creature? We may look the same, act the same, go by the same name, but inside I know that I am different because I embrace the capacity God has for me to be even better and greater than I've ever been before. So that's the good thing about it. And that's how Metamorphosis got started. And here we are 20 years later, still impacting change, still impacting women's lives, still giving them something to hope for and to live for.
I love that so much, because on today, our topic is inspired to live a better life. Let's look at a video.
I remember being accused of being such a rebel. Someone's always saying, you don't follow the rules. You don't want to do things the way normal people do it. You want to go out of tradition. I don't have to do things the way that maybe my grandmother or my mother did it. It says that I can explore. I can go, I can see, I can be, and I can become. And so that spirit is always within each one of us. I have seen women come from miles away, riding the back of rice trucks with their babies tied to their back because they wanted to learn something that would help them make a better life for themselves. Those are the things that we want women to receive when they come to Metamorphosis. So people have to overcome fear, the fear of change. You can't face anything, especially a fear, until you face it head on. Change is an important aspect of all of our lives in so many different ways, because we'll have to learn to embrace it at some point in time. Nothing is consistent. Nothing stays exactly the same. The only thing that is the same is God. You can't stay the same and expect to be better. If you want to improve in your life in any manner, you have to look at change. Ignite change in your life. When you ignite change in your life, then you'll be able to see true passion, true change, and true purpose.
Hey, thank you so much. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with Co-Pastor Mia Wright.
We'll be right back to the Cam Hill Show after these messages.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. For a limited time, get $16,000 off all in-stock Cadillac 2019 XT5 crossovers and $19,000 off all in-stock 2019 CT6 sedans. Or experience the first ever 2020 Cadillac XT6 Premium Luxury Collection. Only $519 with $1 down for 39 months lease. Or purchase and receive 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
When it comes to protecting yourself and your partners, all the information out there can be overwhelming. Visit our website. We are a free and confidential service striving to help you stay informed and stay notified. We are committed to a healthy Houston.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. Drive the new 2020 Cadillac XT4, only $399 a month, or the new 2020 XT5, only $429 a month, both for 39 months lease with just $1 down. Or purchase the XT4 or XT5 and enjoy 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, truck accident, car accident? Was someone texting and ran into the back of you, not paying attention? It doesn't matter what it is. Give me a call, Attorney Willie Powles. We'll fix it today. The number is 281-881-2457. Again, that number is 281-881-2457. We'll fix it today. Call Attorney Willie Powles.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Thank you so much. We are back with co-pastor Mia Wright. Let's jump right back in here. We were talking about metamorphosis and just how it started, how it came about and everything. Today, the topic is inspired to live a better life. Let's jump into your new book, Unthinkable.
Yay!
I love it. I love it. How did it come
Cameron,
about?
it's really interesting. For years, a lot of people have been asking me, well, Mia, when are you going to write your book? And I assume because of Metamorphosis, and a lot of people watched my life transition and watch me change, right?
Yes.
I remember someone asked me a question like, did you get a stylist or did you get a PR person and all
Right.
these things, what did you do to make your changes? And I just really kind of think about it. And it's really the changes that I saw in my life were changes that God had pushed forward in my life, right? He just allowed me to embrace those changes. Like, I love the video you played with the butterfly. And I really think there are changes that we have to ignite. There are changes that happen to us, and there are changes we have to embrace. So we either igniting or embracing, right? So it's either something, we don't like in our life or something we desire for. So we have to ignite it. We have to make that change ourselves. And then something we have to embrace because something happens to us, like a death of a loved one or a loss of a job. And so we have to embrace that. But then it all goes back to ignite. We got to move it forward, right? So people are asking me, when are you going to write your story? And I did. I wrote my story, and then I didn't like reading it. I'm like, let's read this. I don't want to read this, and it's interesting because I was working with a writing coach, and she would say, did you say these things? Did you do these things? Did you experience these things? She goes, well, why is it that you have a problem reading these things? And I'm like, I don't know. And I just really wasn't, I don't know. I wasn't clear about telling my own personal story at that way. So as when a professional company reached me, a publishing company reached me, and they were looking for new authors, they asked me if I had any books. And so I shared with them my personal story, and they were like, well, we have to do some edits to it and this and this. And I said, well, I have another book that I'm writing, but I haven't written, but I've outlined. And they said, tell us about it. And I went back and I had looked at all of my sermons is what happened. And I started looking at the very first sermon that I had preached about, which was the woman with the issue of blood. And what I started to recognize, I'm very much a character-driven preacher. So I love to see people's stories. I relate to people's stories. I think people relate to stories. They're relatable. That, we see ourselves in them. We see somebody we know in them. And so many of the sermons that I had taught were really character development stories. And I started to see the common thread of what I connected to them, because every preacher will read the Bible and you'll get something out of it, right? Every person will read it and get something out of it, but really kind of according to what our paradigms are, what our worldviews are, what we think about life. All of those things are what will capture our attention. So what I started to see was a common thread was the things that these people had done that had taken them out of their comfort zones, the things that they had done that had pushed them, again, as I like to use that word, because when we get out of our comfort zone can be areas that we are okay with them, being the way they are, but also areas that fear will hold us. So fear or comfort, one of those two things is what I believe hold people back from moving to their next level.
Right.
And so Cameron, so I started seeing that, and so I put together a whole list of these sermons, and I said, these people did something unthinkable. And
Right.
the name of the book, everything was already outlined, because it goes right back to that woman with the issue of blood. And her story says that, she was sick. She was following the laws. The laws
Right.
told her that because you are sick with this type of illness, you cannot have any contact with people. You have to be, exclude yourself from everything
Right.
because you're considered unclean, and you can't touch anyone. And the thing that gets me is that, especially with that touch, and I tell this in her story, is that we're given 5 senses when we're born, right? We're giving sight to see this, and we're giving the ability to smell. We're given the ability to taste. We're given the ability to hear, and the ability to touch. And so in her particular story, when we think about it, when they take for 12 years her capacity, they take away her ability to touch. They're taking away part of her humanity. They're
Right.
removing her from one of the aspects that makes her human. And so this woman now is dealing with this. And on this one particular day, she has been doing everything according to what the law says she should do. This one day, she says she hears about Jesus coming to town. She hears that he's a healer. And she understands that she has lost all her money, going to all the doctors, doing everything right. She says, if I could just touch the hem of his garment, I can be made whole. And the thought that she has is an unthinkable thought, because she is not supposed to do it. She has been 12 years not doing it, but yet she says, if I could just do it, right? And so I think about that. So because many times in our lives, we do the same thing. We do what is right. We do what we are told we can do. We stay within the box of conformity, and we say, I'm doing everything I should be doing, but I can't get better. I can't advance. I can't get this job, or I can't start my business. I can't get better, in a relationship. We get through all of this. But yet that one day she said, if I can just do this. So it was something that she hadn't been doing, something she was told she could not do, something that was out of bounds for her. But yet she said, if I could do it, and she did it. And the moment she did it, her whole life changed, because it says now in that moment, right, that she was instantly healed. I mean, just right in that moment. And this is according to the story of Mark 5. And she says, the word says that Jesus turned around and said, who touched me? And then his disciples are like, hey, we're in the middle of a crowd. Everybody's touching you. What do you mean, who touched you? And he said, no, somebody touched me. So there was something different about the manner that she touched him, something that she did that was not like what everybody else was doing. And it said that the woman came before him with fear and trembling, and she admitted to this, right? And then he says to her 3 things. He says, daughter, your faith has made you whole. Now go in peace, right? And live your life. And so he replaces, I love to think about the way that he says this, because daughter gives her a relationship, right? So he's restoring something to her, because at the beginning of the story, it just says a certain woman of a village. So she was just any old woman. But now he gives her a relationship and puts her in a family and makes her a part of a sense of belonging. Daughter, your faith has made you whole. So then he heals her in her present, from the things she's been dealing with. So now relationship, healing. And he says, now go and live in peace. Go and live your life. So he gives her this future. And so everything about her life for the last 12 years that had been jacked up and messed up has now changed, because she did something that was previously unthinkable, but now she did it because she thought about it and she moved on it. And so each one of those stories in the book is 10 stories of different biblical historical characters who did something that was considered unthinkable. So it talks about, Cameron, I talk about unforgiveness and how many of us are holding on to unforgiveness and how we have to let that go. I talk about being wise when you're dealing with foolishness. We have to be wise people. I talk about learning and opening ourselves up to being mentored and hearing and listening and being able to grow in that capacity, because we can hear what somebody who is more seasoned has to say to us. It's a number of different areas, but
Yes.
it really will help advance somebody's life's purpose if they're trying to live a better life.
It's amazing. It's a masterpiece. I read it. I read
Awesome,
it.
sir.
Yes, and it
All right,
says,
so I have a question for you, the interviewer.
I know, it encourages us to push beyond self-imposed limits to achieve life-changing results. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome.
Let's look at a video real quick about it before, and then we'll come right back. Let's look at this. I want you all to see this.
Unthinkable is a book that helps people to look at the boundaries that they've placed on themselves in their lives. It reveals the impact of what our belief coupled with intentional action, how those two come together to transform a person's life. As you read through the pages of Unthinkable, you'll explore the lives of 10 historical people who lived in ancient times. Many of their life circumstances are similar to what we experience today. They did something beyond their boundaries to do what was unthinkable, and we mark their lives as being extraordinary. Don't wait any longer. Your destiny is waiting for you. Being regular robs you of your extraordinary. What is it going to take for you to do your unthinkable?
Co-pastor me, I love that. I love that. I love it.
It was fun doing that. And the interesting thing is when you love what you do and what you
Yes.
believe in, it comes so easy, right? And so, I mean, not that we don't have struggles in our desires to achieve, not that we don't have struggles, but when people ask you, what do you do? Or
Yes.
what is this about? Or why would you say this? It comes easy because of the sense of really believing it and recognizing it, that it's possible. It truly is possible. And I can look at my own life and my own testimony. And the truth is that, I came from unbelievable background. I came
Yes.
from, really struggled as a child growing up. I had a lot of, I want to say identity. I think identity more around color issues and stuff, because I grew up originally in California, Cameron, and as a kid, we didn't see color, we
Yes.
didn't see color. I had friends of all ethnicities and such. And then when we moved to Texas, it was really interesting because
South.
my story is that, a lot of African Americans, we will say, oh, I felt so much racism from white people. Well, I felt racism from black people. I was
Yes.
like, what is
Yes.
this?
Yeah.
What do you mean I'm not black? I am
They're
black.
right.
I'm just a fair-skinned sister. But I really kind of struggled with that growing up for a long time, and just being honest. And so it's like, you're not black enough for this group, you're not white enough for this group,
Yes.
and so you kind of are like in the middle, like trying to figure out, well, who am I if I'm not black or if I'm not white? And so it was kind of a history that was with that, and then going into a high school setting where everything was really very metered by race, and we had a diverse school where it was 30% white, 30% black, 30% Hispanic, and 10% other.
Yes.
And everything that we did was along those lines. So if we had cheerleader competitions, we could elect 10 people. 3 of them had to be black, 3 had to be white, 3 had to be Hispanic, and 1 had to be other, or an alternate of the 3 with the highest votes. So it was interesting. So race was a very big issue for us growing up. But anyway, all those things to say, I kind of grew up and came from a really on the other side of the track kind of girl. And I tell this sometimes, I don't tell everybody this, but I was really a disciplined child. I was a A student, but in conduct. So, I spent a lot of time in the principal's office, and was put out of school once or twice.
No way.
For conduct.
No way, not you.
I know.
No way.
Listen, it was bad. It was really bad. I tell parents all the time, don't give up on your children. Listen, and I'm really serious about this. Let me take a pause and be really serious to some parents, because I know sometimes it's hard to understand why your child who has such great potential is doing bad things. And so because of the struggle that I had around identity in that sense, I had to really build this barrier of being a bad, I don't know if I can cuss, but being a bad A girl, right? And so because of that, it was like, hey, don't mess with me. And so I was a fighter. I was, a foul mouth. It was really bad, growing up. And I remember one of the ladies at church bringing her daughter to me. She goes, she's such a smart girl. She has such potential, but she's so bad. And I was like, she's got great potential. Right. But you need to understand why she's so bad. Why is she having to do this? And I told her, Mom, look, don't stop believing in your child. Keep advocating for her. Be that parent that shows up and says, well, why does she have to cuss somebody out? But why does she do it? Because there's a reason behind it all. Yes. And I thank God my mom didn't kick me to the curb with that. Or my principals. I had some great principals too. In fact, I got a letter this year from my middle school principal. Can you believe that? She saw me on the at the George Floyd funeral. Right. And said, I remember you. You were my student. I was like, oh, so shame. I was so bad. But I'm so grateful that God, don't give up on your kids. That's all I just want to say. Don't give up on your kids.
Don't give up on your kids.
Yeah. Keep nurturing them. Keep believing in them. Even for our teachers who are looking at that one bad child who has such potential. And you're like, I don't know why you're so bad. Keep giving them love. Keep nurturing them. And keep your eyes open to see how you can help them. Because it was a teacher. Cameron, it was an 8th grade math teacher who, Ms. Lydia West, who I did not even have for a class. And she said something positive about me to another student. Wow. And the other student called me on the phone and told me what Ms. West said about me. Wow. And I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now.
8th grade.
8th grade at Dobie Junior High School. Wow. And she said to me, Miss West says that you are such a future leader, that you carry yourself so well. What Miss West did not know, that on the bus, I was the baddest chick on the bus. What she didn't know was that I would fight a boy. So the girls were scared of me because I would fight boys. And that was why I fought boys, was so that the girls wouldn't mess with me. And Miss West didn't know that, I just had this hard outer shell. And so when I was in school, I was trying to be good. But the moment I got on the bus, I was horrible. And she, as a teacher, spoke something positive about me. And it made me go to my mom. And I said, well, what does that mean when somebody says that? She says, it means that she sees you as somebody who's intelligent. She sees you as somebody who is good, somebody who has a good heart. And my mother broke it down for me. And I was like, dang, I am none of those things on the bus. And I recognized that I had to realign my life. Yeah. For real, I recognized at 13 years old that if I continued in that manner, that I was not that person that she saw me as. Wow. I wanted to be that person, and it made me become a better person. And so I'm so grateful to Miss Lydia West, Dobie Junior High School, the math teacher.
There you go.
She was amazing and blessed my life. So teachers, parents, whoever you are, you have influence. Young youth leaders, you have influence over children, and you can impact their lives to help them become better people throughout their whole life. So, yeah.
I love that.
Don't give up on them.
I love that. There's one person in your book or that you talk a lot about that women want me to really hone in on. Okay. And that was the Naomi and Ruth, because of Boaz. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a break, but we will talk about that piece because they have told me I have to. We'll be right back on The Cam Hill Show.
We'll be right back to The Cam Hill Show after these messages.
protecting yourself and your partners, all the information out there can be overwhelming. Visit our website. We are a free and confidential service striving to help you stay informed and stay notified. We are committed to a healthy Houston.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. Drive the new 2020 Cadillac XT4, only $399 a month, or the new 2020 XT5, only $429 a month, both for 39 months lease with just $1 down. Or purchase the XT4 or XT5 and enjoy 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, truck accident, car accident? Was someone texting and ran into the back of you, not paying attention? It doesn't matter what it is. Give me a call, Attorney Willie Powles. We'll fix it today. The number is 281-881-2457. Again, that number is 281-881-2457. We'll fix it today. Call Attorney Willie Powles.
Houston's only Cadillac to your door dealer, Ron Carter Cadillac, delivers test drives to your home or office. For a limited time, get $16,000 off all in-stock Cadillac 2019 XT5 crossovers and $19,000 off all in-stock 2019 CT6 sedans. Or experience the first ever 2020 Cadillac XT6 Premium Luxury Collection, only $519 with $1 down for 39 months lease. Or purchase and receive 0.9% APR for 72 months with no payments until November. RonCarterCadillac.com.
And now back to the Cam Hill Show.
Hey, we are right back with Co-Pastor Mia Wright. Co-Pastor, we were talking about the fact of your book. And in that book, some of the ladies have told me all this week, bring up Naomi and Ruth a little bit. And you say, when Naomi commanded her daughters-in-law to go back home, Ruth vowed to stay. That was one thing. But in her staying, she went out to work. And when she worked, Boaz came and he saw her. He saw her being beautiful and thing. And it just goes back to, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. And in speaking of
favor.
He. So we're going to leave that right there. And it's
it goes on. The people often miss that second part. It says, and obtains favor from the Lord.
Let's say it again. We got to go back a little bit.
Say, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord.
There you go.
So it's some good things from finding your wife.
It's some good things from finding your wife. So wives, ladies, pray for us. Let us find you.
You know what? I preached a sermon once, and it was called "Position Yourself."
There you go.
And I shared about how Pastor Remus and I met.
Right.
And so we met at a gospel music workshop convention.
Mm-hmm.
And my family was big in music, and he was a gospel singer.
Right.
And I was in college at the time, so I was hardly at all knowing anything about gospel music or anything. I wasn't even listening to gospel music besides the whining songs by many people and the Mighty Clouds of Joy. That's my uncle was a singer. And but my whole family is in music. My uncle's a big DJ and got over the state gospel music radio announcers guild, all of those things. So my family very much in church life. And I would go to the convention because it was a free trip. And so all of our family would go. So all my aunts and my cousins. And so we had like a little family reunion every year at the Gospel Music Workshop Convention. Mm-hmm. And so this one year we were there and we arrived late to the session, to the main session. Mm-hmm. And so when we got there, there was a lot of people on the hallway. And so I just kind of turned like, what's going on? It was like people like, woo, like gathering around. So I turned, I looked. And I see these three very attractive men and this whole group of crowd around them, right? And I was like, oh, so I kind of looked at like, what's going on? And I look and I see Remus Wright. And I see him and I'm like, oh, we catch each other's eye. And I'm like, he's nice looking. I wonder what that's all about, right? So what I didn't know was that they were like the headliners.
Right.
His group used to sing with the Pentecost Ambassadors, and they were the headliners for that session that had just come out. And so we went in and got seated, and I sat for a little while, and then I told my cousin, I said, you know what? I'm gonna go back outside. I'm gonna go see what all that was about, you know. And I really just kind of wanted to go be nosy and see who he was.
Right.
So I went back outside, and it was still like a nice little crowd of people around him and his singer, the men who sang with him, which was really funny. And so I kind of looked at it. I was like, okay. So I went and I sat in this area that it wasn't crowded, so that if he wanted, I saw him look at me and I looked at him again, and I just went and sat there, and I call it positioning myself. And so I went and positioned myself so that I was accessible.
Right.
And, you know, because I think the problem is sometimes, and this, I mean, who am I to give relationship advice? But I've been married for 30 years, and, you know, with some ups and downs of marriage, you know, I can just say, thank God, you know, we have been married, and we are feeling our calling that God has for us, and the purpose and all that. So all I can say is that I positioned myself so that he would be able to come and meet me.
There you go.
Know, I was bold enough. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a shy person. I was bold enough to walk up to him and introduce myself to him, but I decided that wasn't what I needed to do. God sent me to go sit over there.
Right.
So I went and I sat, and then he came over and introduced himself to me. So, you know, sometimes my brother-in-law says it like this. I'll put it this way. My brother-in-law says it like this. He says, men are so what was his word? I don't want to say stupid or nothing like that. He just said men are so unaware. That's what men are so unaware. They don't realize that a woman has seen him 3-4 times before he's seen her. She's already seen him, picked him out.
Yes.
But it takes, you know, that opportunity. You have to let a man kind of lead, right? So if the word said let the man find a wife, I'm gonna position myself so you can find it. So I hope I'm helping somebody out there today.
You help somebody. You have to run to people. They need to position themselves.
You don't have to always walk up, but let the man. But you know, sometimes you gotta clear your crowd out too, because sometimes men are, you know, they can be intimidated by you and your 50 friends, because you know how it is. Sometimes you got 3-4 friends and they'll cut a man down. He'll feel bad coming up just to say hi. Yeah. Or he might end up with the wrong person. You know, he wasn't interested in you. But, he was interested in you, but your friend out-talked you. And so he's kind of like, oh, but I really want to talk. So
well, bye. Bye to all of you.
Okay. Clear the crowd.
Clear the crowd. You just released something. You told some people some things. You told these ladies. You said some things.
Yeah, because you know what? Back to that chapter, if you think about Boaz and Naomi, Naomi was out there on the outskirts by herself.
Right.
I mean, sorry, Ruth was. I'm saying it wrong.
Ruth was.
Ruth was out there on the outskirts by herself. She was gleaning the fields. And he saw her.
He
told the men, look out for her.
In other words, give her more grain. Just let it just drop more food.
Drop.
Yeah.
But the other thing was that women on the outskirts were vulnerable.
Yes.
They were unprotected. And so he provided for her a level of security.
Right.
By saying, you know, look out for her. Like you said, he's given her things as an extra, but he's not just walking up and saying, here, take this. Right. He's allowing her to work for it. Yes. Right. She's still doing what she should be doing. You know, he's not just saying, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to pay your bills. Okay. I didn't want anybody to think I was frozen, but I wanted them to think about it for a second. He still allowed her to work for it. And she still had to do something. But he also protected her and then made sure that she had plenty, sufficient for where she was working. So that was the good thing about it, is that, you know, no other harm would come upon her because he was watching her and he could see her. He could see her. You know what? And it was different. She was also working when he saw her. Okay, so I don't know. I think we have a different mindset with some people who are, some women are not women, some people in general. Yeah. Who, you know, just looking for somebody to take care of everything. Yeah. But the truth is that, hey, you have a God-ordained purpose. Yeah. Period. You have a purpose for living. You have a purpose for being. And that purpose isn't just for somebody to take care of you. Yeah. That purpose is for you to do something fulfilling for yourself. You should feel great about yourself because you're doing something that you were destined to do. So, do it. Get busy doing it. And
That's it.
somebody's going to see that. And somebody, it doesn't have to be a romantic interest, but somebody will see what you're doing. And somebody will say, hey, let me protect that person. Somebody will say, hey, let me open up a door for that person. Somebody will say, let me provide something. Let me send some clients that way. Let me advocate for this person. Somebody will do something good and big for you because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Wow. Wow. I love
Yeah.
what you're saying in Unthinkable. I'm telling you, you got to get that. I mean, it has biblical parts, but it's also inspire you to have a better life right now, right this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very practical book in many
Yeah.
instances. I share not a lot, but I share some of my story along with it.
Yes.
And how I've related to those characters, what I've seen in my life that has caused me to do certain things or that relates to that story. And as I said, that every person will read a story and they'll either see themselves or they'll see somebody else in that story. And so I share what I see of myself in that story as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know, and this is just a little bit, we have just a little bit, about 5 or 6 minutes or so, but George Floyd, you all at the Fountain of Praise, you had that funeral and things, and racism was in there, just a lot was going on, even with this COVID. You know, it's a lot been going on, but I love the fact that you still push for a better life, for people to tell people those things are happening. Yes, you address those, but you still are here for a reason.
You know, I think the thing with George Floyd's funeral, at first I want to say that the Fountain of Praise, we believe in serving our families. We
Yes.
believe in those compassionate moments that we have to be there to stand in
Yes.
for them. And so a member of the Floyd family, a very close member of the Floyd family, had reached out to us. Well, actually, we saw the video and we said,
Yes.
oh my God, our cousin. And so we reached out to her and just said, hey, we want you to know we're praying for you. What can we do
Yes.
to help you? And so it was initially a funeral for a family,
Yes.
and then it became a funeral for the world.
Yes.
And like you said, in the midst of COVID, there were a lot of things that we had to take into consideration of
Yes.
how will we do this? How are we going to manage this number of people coming through to show their respects? Because George Floyd's death was tragic in its sense, and tragic
Yes.
in that it was the hand of the officer, and tragic like so many other tragedies that we are still experiencing.
Right.
But his was different in the sense because I think it was, as many historians have noted now, it was the first time that we watched the faces of
Right.
both the victim and the victimizer
Yes.
as it happened. And so this stirred up something in every person. I mean, if you didn't feel something, then part of your humanity is escaped.
Right.
And I don't know why, but you know, it's sad. But anyway, so having to step forward with leadership and think through the capacity of how can we manage this crowd, how can we provide for this family a safe and loving memorial service for their loved one, how can we keep them, you know, safe from people who would still want to hate. All of those things were very necessary to think through. And so we have an amazing team at the Fountain of Praise. Pastor Wright, Brother George Anderson, Deacon Charlie Rito,
Yes.
all of our staff and every volunteer that helped pull and execute this thing. It took a team, a village,
Yes.
a
Yes.
village, a
Had to. Yes.
to make it happen. And we're so grateful that everything went off without a hitch. We thank God for that. We thank God that the family was blessed through it
Yes.
all, and that our world was exposed to a level of ministry
Right.
that maybe they hadn't been, right?
Yeah.
And so we had some beautiful people that participated in the program that sang their heart. Nikita, Kim, I mean, so many people that sang,
Yes.
artists that incredible things. I actually just watched the funeral myself a few days ago. I had you know, when you're there and you're part of
Right.
it, so I wanted to see what the world saw.
Right.
And it was just really beautiful to be able to see so many speakers deliver a message of hope, a message that challenged people, you know, from our mayor, Sylvester Turner, our congressman, Al Green, Sheila Jackson Lee, to pastors, Dr. Will Lawson, to Pastor Steve, Pastor Remus Wright, everybody. I'm missing somebody. I'm missing several people. Al Sharpton, Bishop Jimmy Dixon, everybody who shared. It really did give us this feeling of we have hope. We have something to do. Systemic injustices that are happening against African Americans in the United States has to change. It has to change. It has to change. We cannot sit along with the status quo. So here we go back to this change process, right? We cannot sit with the status quo saying that's the way things have been. We cannot sit with the status quo and say, oh, I never knew that, or, you know, my parents dealt with that, but we can't be blinded to the injustices, but we have to ask ourselves, each individual person, what can I do to impact change? What can I do to educate myself to help somebody else? What can I do to educate myself to make a change within the environment that God has placed me? So whether that's on your job, to call out racism when it exists, whether it's in your community with people that you know and you meet, to say, hey, you know what? That can't go forth. I had a situation with, we had something happen in my neighborhood where I live. And a chain of emails went through. And then one email said something that was very biased.
Right.
And so I responded not once, but twice to say, hey, wait a minute. This is a biased opinion. And because neighbors in Georgia felt like they were protecting their neighborhood, they made a decision that was very biased. And now we have a dead Black man and 3 white men in jail for murder charges of this Black man because they felt like they were protecting their neighborhood without realizing how biased their opinions were becoming. So I want to make sure that we are checking ourselves on this.
Absolutely.
And on the second email, there was a young 16-year-old Asian neighbor who sent me a response back. And she said, my parents are just beginning to understand what this bias is, but I want to call it out. And I thank you for calling it out to all the neighbors and helping them to see how systemic this is. And then how we also have our implicit bias in the things that we say and write. I'm like, she's 16 years old.
Absolutely. I love it. How do people get in touch with you? And last words.
Oh, last words. Hey, I'm on just about every social media at Mia Wright. So my Instagram and Twitter is at Mia Wright, and my Facebook is at Mia K Wright. And I'm really grateful they can get my book. You can find the links on all of my social media. My website is miawright.com. And any last words, I just want to say that we're living in a time of change, and we cannot settle for things as is. So don't keep saying, get the words out of your mouth that says, I wish things would go back to normal. Things will never be normal again as we knew normal to be. We have a new normal to create. So now impact it and be inspired to start your own new normal.
I love it. I so thank you on today for being here, because this is the day. It's a march on Washington, D.C. because of just what we just spoke about. And I'm so glad you were here. God bless you. God keep you. Love you, lady. And Pastor Remus, thank you for all that you two do.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you for what you do as well. And we look forward to seeing you back, online right now at the Fountain of Praise. The doors of the church open. We look forward to seeing you back in fellowship.
Absolutely. I will. Take care. Love you. Bye-bye. Guys, just wanted to tell you, next week, we've got a real big show. I'll talk to you then. Have a great one. Take care. Bye.